There.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me when.
Okay, right now, Joe. It'd be perfect.
We're on now?
Yeah, we're 100% on right now.
No, seriously?
Yeah, no, yeah, you can start the intro exactly.
Just tell me when. Just come in when we're ready.
We're live. We're live right now.
We are.
Oh, this is terrible.
Hey there, boys and girls. How are you? Welcome to another episode of the original Drink and Draw Social Club with our special guest today, J. Scott Campbell. And now it's time to introduce. Yay! Now it's time to introduce the regular cast of clowns and characters. We have Mr. Dave Slick Johnson.
Wow.
See the top of his head. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, Dave? How's it going?
Look at that hat, everybody.
That hat is awesome. Dave, why is there porn on your computer behind you?
Oh, bad form.
Ooh.
It's
And then we have Mr. Dan Ukla Panosian.
Hi, everybody.
Crowd
Hello,
goes
cool
crazy.
world.
They're going wild. I can hear them from here, Dan. And then you know him, you love him. He is the best of us, the absolute best of us, Mr. Jeff, the Mock Johnson.
Oh, Jeff Johnson.
Hi, everyone.
And me, not quite your host, but I'm still here.
That's right.
Just me. Whatever.
So
All right, let's move on. Let's get on with this. People don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from Jeff.
Our illustrious guest.
Scott.
I answered many names like that Rolling Stones song.
Jeff, are you drinking tonight and drawing?
Yes, Dan. In fact, I am drinking. I would be bad form of me to not bring something. I have my favorite Moscow Mule here in the
Nice.
the official copper mug. Otherwise, I couldn't hang my head or raise my head.
Now, why is it the copper mug the official mug of the Moscow Mule?
It's very cold. It keeps that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had that trivia answer. I can't say I do. It
I
just
do.
feels nice having it in copper. I don't know what to say.
I
You
know.
have the answer.
It was the guys who invented it just happened to have some copper mugs, and they just decided to always serve it in a copper mug, and it took off.
All right. That's
Wow.
the worst
That's
explanation.
not a great story.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but it's
Yeah, but
But it's
Dan,
the
I
truth.
suspect we're going to have a problem here because when you say Jeff, we got two Jeffs on now. So how do we differentiate here?
even
Hondo?
though I've known Jeff Johnson longer, I feel like this new Jeff's a bit of an improvement. So he'll be Jeff, and Jeff could just be the mock.
I'll be the
Well,
mug.
I actually have a funny story about that. Well, not as good as Dave's copper mug story, but it's
No.
pretty good.
Let's hear it.
Well, it was funny because being an artist when you're in high school, you tend to develop art. At least in my case, I know you guys are probably big men on campus, but I actually developed my art style because I was quite shy in school and high school and that sort of thing. And my parents always called my sister and myself by our middle names, which in my case is Scott. Jeff's technically my first name, but my parents just developed this thing where they would do this. So my sister is Jill, but she's Jessica Jill Campbell, and I'm Jeffrey Scott Campbell as well. And so basically, when I got into high school, just being timid and not wanting to rock the boat when they would call roll call, I just got used to answering to Jeff, even though nobody in my personal life called me Jeff. It was just a way to sort of kind of get through the school day without getting pummeled or something.
Right.
And then when I rolled into my early studio days, like very quickly after high school, I was fortunate enough to get hired at Jim Lee's studio at the time, and there was Scott Williams, there was Trevor Scott, there was Scott Clark, and then very quickly after that, Scott Doonbeer came in. So I kind of in my timid, still fresh out of high school phase was like, oh, I'll answer to Jeff. It's okay. I did it all through high school. And it was my famous last words, because now I've had this dual identity for years where so many people from that era call me Jeff. My wife calls me Scott. My most of my family calls me Scott. So I kind of answer to, I have to have this dual identity, which is
Like
kind
a
of
superhero, though.
really left me.
Right. That's awesome. Hey, so when did you go down? It was the Homage Studios, right?
Yeah. That was back when it was Homage. I think Homage sort of incorporated when Mark was there, Mark Silvestri and Wills. And I think that kind of none of them I think had studio production names, at least not that I was aware of at that point. That was before they sort of started creating Top Cow and Wildstorm and all that stuff. I was kind of there when they were brewing all that stuff kind of. But yeah, that was back when it was Homage, and it was just It's kind of funny. It wasn't any glamorous workspace. It was just some office building in San Diego. Nothing really special. Yeah, but it was magical to me. I mean, that was my most exciting favorite time. I think doing comics, because there was so much excitement around that time. Everything seemed possible. I remember going over to like the Xerox machine, and there were still Xeroxes in a pile from some X-Men issue that Jim and Scott Williams had done. I was like, these are just still here, but it wasn't that long ago, so why wouldn't they be there still? So, right. And I just remember thinking I was like a kid in a candy shop, going like, oh my god, like this is just crazy, So yeah, that was a very fun time. It was never quite as magical again after that, but that first studio was just, so much history had come out of that little, rundown.
What'd you think of the La Jolla one?
You can't like complain about the La Jolla one. It was an amazing location. It was like on the ocean. It was an amazing space, designed really well. But once we all got in there, we were kind of like never really in a big group again. We never really had that sense that we were all a community. We all kind of got segmented off, and it just didn't have that same spark. It's almost like, I compare it to people always say when musicians get that home studio after recording really great albums, and in the studio, those home studio albums never seem to be the ones that people really remember. It's always those earlier ones when they didn't have the means to have a home studio,
or when they were recording in a castle, getting completely blasted at a castle by themselves.
Joe, do you remember this photo?
Yes,
I do. Does Scott remember this photo?
Yeah, where's Scott? Which one are you in that?
I think I might be the odd man out, like that Sesame Street bit. Which one of these is doing his own thing?
Are you the guys throwing the rabbit ears?
I'm the one throwing the rabbit ears who looks like he's doing a Harry Potter impersonation on vacation or something like that. Yeah, that's that.
Right?
What's that?
Is that Sal Regula?
I think that is Sal, actually, that I'm doing that from the same studio. Yep.
Why is every photo from that era, Dan, you're always flexing?
How could he not?
Joe, every photo from any era, Dan is flexing.
Yeah, to this day, I'm probably flexing in most photos.
He's flexing right now.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to find. There's one where you're throwing a calf shot, Joe. I'm gonna try to find that one.
Where I'm throwing a what?
Calves.
Oh, I think I remember. I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, there's one where you're throwing some calf action.
Oh.
Hey Scott, do you mind how did you get involved with Jim Lee? Like, did he how did you hook up with that gig?
There was a bidding war.
Yeah, let's go with Dan's version. I like that much better.
Kind of, right, Jeff?
I wouldn't say there was a bidding war. I think both Jim and then very shortly after, as I recall chronologically, Rob Liefeld were both sort of looking to expand their studios. And I happened to see it was funny too, because I'd gone to several comic book conventions and read enough magazines and stuff to realize that you don't get asked to join comic book companies. You have to like repeatedly annoy them enough to break in, is always how I was kind of told. And from what I understand, that's most of the time the case. But for some reason, Jim had it in the back of, I think it was the second issue of Wildcats, a talent search, like literally saying, hey, like, we're looking for talent. I remember thinking like, wait a second, this is what's not supposed to happen. So I actually in the matter of I think a week and a half or 2 weeks, put together some samples from everything I remembered, which is basically make sure there's 2 or 3 story pages, maybe 1 pinup or a cover. I quickly also tailored it to his book. I was like, well, if I draw his characters, he'll be able to envision me better working for him. If it's, and also maybe pick up on enthusiasm for wanting to get hired. So I drew Wildcats pages as my samples. And I think I even did artwork on the manila envelope too, to try to catch even more attention, like say, hey, open me, because I didn't know how many they'd be getting. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I was just making sure every opportunity was there. And within about, I think it was like a week and a half, Jim called me at home. It was funny, I missed the call, and my mom came in and said, oh, Jim Lee called you or something like that. I was laughing it off, because to me that was like a big deal. I was like, oh, that's really funny, like, yeah, who really called me? And she goes, no, somebody named Jim Lee. Do you know Jim Lee? I said, yes. And then, so of course, I very quickly got back in touch with them. And within about a month, I think was moving out from Denver to San Diego and working an internship at Homage Studios, which was pretty freaking mind blowing for a 19-year-old at that time. I did not expect it to go that way, but I felt very fortunate.
That's awesome. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were that young. But...
And you had not done any professional comics before this, so working at Homage was your first? That's fantastic.
I think that year between getting out of high school and that, I did a lot of different commercial art jobs. I kind of made some connections in high school and was always kind of doing side projects. So I was kind of doing things like keeping busy and trying to develop my comic book style simultaneous to these other commercial gigs. But yeah, it was pretty wild to get. I mean, I really felt I didn't know what I was doing. I kind of was like, I mean, when I was working there, I had comic books spread out all over my table because I felt like I was still crash course learning what to do. I knew I kind of had to keep referencing how my heroes would render a rock and how they draw a spaceship, and so I was constantly just. Now of course it's funny to think back on that, but yeah, I was just constantly researching at the same time. So my style was rapidly changing very quickly, like issue by issue, because it just.
Well, that's what I noticed, Jeff. I remember because I was over at Rob's studio at the time. And
right.
And I had also just started penciling.
Profit, and, was it Profit?
It was Profit, yeah.
Yeah.
But
what year did you get in, Dan? What year did you start working for Rob? What year was that?
I think it was 93.
Yeah, that was the year I got in, 93. So
yeah,
we were
it was brand new. And I remember seeing your work and going, oh, man, he's so good. I go, well, I think I can catch up. And then every issue, it would be like a drastic, massive improvement with each one. And it was really cool to watch, like, you just keep growing and changing every issue.
I appreciate it. Those are very kind words. I honestly, I did feel that at the time that's what, I mean, I often refer to the expression, drinking off a fire hose, kind of like that. I felt the information that was coming at me from like being around these superstars of the industry in the same building. I couldn't almost process the information fast enough. It almost felt like, sometimes there's that scene in what's it called, The Matrix, where where Keanu goes like, "Can you fly a helicopter?" And she goes, "Now I can." Like, that's how fast the information felt like it was coming. I mean, I was processing it that fast, but I just couldn't get over how it's probably the one time in my life where I just felt like information was coming at me so fast, and I was barely keeping up. But yeah, I mean, I think those first probably like handful of issues, you could probably just see. It almost seemed like a different person drawing each one of them. It was, and actually the first two issues, Jim Lee actually laid out with like bubble figures, but they still look like Jim's energy, So the first two issues I did of Gen 13, they kind of had I was kind of doing a quasi Jim because you kind of just saw what he was trying to do, and I could imagine Wolverine doing these poses and stuff. But yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, I appreciate that comment. I mean, I think I actually thought that book too, Gen 13, I actually thought, oh, this will be a nice little book that nobody will pay attention to while I figure out what this is doing, because I knew Jim had done Alpha Flight, and Todd, who I was also looked up to, I remember he went through his Hulk phase before I got to Spidey. So I just thought this would be this thing where like, oh, I can do this and figure this out. So when a lot of like attention got on Gen 13 very early, I kind of was like, I almost had a little bit of stage fright, like, oh crap, like everybody's watching this. This isn't good. So
yeah, those books, I don't know what they sold, but they sold like crazy back then. So everyone was, doing it.
Scott, were comics always the goal?
I was kind of Joe. I was kind of thinking like I would be an animator. Actually, that was my original first goal. I mean, my first, I'd say probably, I'd say probably the first 2 or 3 years of high school, that was the track I was on. I invested in like a Laserdisc player so I could study Disney animation frame by frame. In fact, that was kind of when Disney was kind of going through that renaissance. they were having a lot of hits with like Little Mermaid and the I think at the time Aladdin had just come out. So it was kind of cool to think, oh, maybe being an animator is a cool gig. But I'd say probably that last half of high school, comic books just kind of stole me away. I mean, I always knew I wanted to be some sort of artist. I did want to pursue art in some way. But yeah, I think I kind of quickly dropped animation when I realized not only all these cool, amazing styles that existed in comic books, but just sort of the fact that you also got to have your own identity. You know, animation is such a collaborative process that you kind of disappear against it. You don't get to have as much of your own point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
So who were some of the guys that you were looking at? You said you had some heroes. Who were those guys?
I mean, I was, the one, Jeff, the one that kind of really got me, I think, where I kind of was really like rethinking the whole, my whole animation thing was, well, there was two reasons why I kind of bailed from animation. One was discovering Arthur Adams. It wasn't even me, a friend of mine who I like to draw with and kind of hang out with and draw. He showed me, I think it's funny, I'm actually forgetting which one it is, but I think it's X-Men Annual number 10. And it was, I think, long shot when he appears in like the X-Men and I had never seen Arthur's work before, and that was the first time I saw it. And something just really clicked when I saw that particular, when I saw that issue. I was like, whoa, this is what comic books can look like. Like, I kind of like the level of detail and the stylization, and all the figures were really kind of long and kind of like, I like
animated.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Actually, I mean, that was probably why it appealed to me, because there was something animated about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking too, like, because I was kind of, part of the reason I was kind of attracted to the animation was I was like, I liked the cute girls that were in Disney movies, like I liked the way the Little Mermaid was stylized, and all the women in the Disney movies dating back to like Sleeping Beauty and stuff like that. And when I saw his, I was like, whoa, these are like kind of like animated, like you said, animated women. They kind of had that sort of sparkle kind of to them.
Right.
But to me, that was like really, I kind of like couldn't stop looking at that comic book, and then kind of just kept searching for more and more of his work. Simultaneous to that, I think the Tim Burton Batman movie had come out, the very first one. And I was really, like everybody at the time, super into the live action Batman movie that finally was good. I mean, and I remember reading an article because I was fascinated when I learned that Tim Burton had been an animator. I was like, oh, that's strange. Like he was an animator and went into directing movies. Now he's directing Batman. That's crazy. And I think there was like, I'm paraphrasing now, and I don't even know if this actually was ever written in text, but the way I remember it was there was an article talking about his past in animation, and he specifically made the point, or made the reference of going like, yeah, I was working at Disney, and one day it just dawned on me, I couldn't be the guy who did the enchanted flower sequence for 6 months. And like, as in like a metaphor for like, I don't think I can be that guy. And then I remember reading that going like, yeah, I don't think I can be that guy either. Like, because it suddenly dawned on me, you don't just walk in and get to draw like the Little Mermaid. You're the guy who does the enchanted rocks for like 5 years, or these other things. And I just kind of
you draw water for most of your career. You do the special effects with the wind blowing across the grass is what you start with.
Right. Because I always forget too, because both you and Dave and Dan, I forget, did you do some animation too? Or
the animation I ever did was I would do design work, like character design work, and it was more like concept design work. So, and then someone else would come in and go, okay, now let's try to make that so it can actually work. Right.
I follow you.
Wow, Dan, you didn't humble brag.
I saved it. I'm saving it for later.
All right, finish it, Dan. Just come on, bring it home.
Yeah, they would bring me in as a special ops crew.
Work on
there.
Dan.
You go. Right.
What character did you design? Go ahead.
No, that was it. I have an animation background.
Wow.
Sorry. I'm going to keep it real.
That's true, though. I mean, Jeff, that's really interesting that because that's one of the things that pushed me away from animation early on too. Is like I wanted to do more. Like I didn't want to be stuck drawing just the same figure over and over again as it walks across the room. I'm like, oh,
Right.
I just don't have the patience for it.
Right. I mean, I think it's funny. I actually think weirdly I might have had the patience for that. Like I said, it was the part of thinking like I'd have to draw water or you know, that kind of thing. For like I was going like, oh man, I don't know if I could do the grunt work. I don't think the part of having to draw the figure I want to draw moving ever seemed unappealing. It's just even though I probably would have got to that point when I was doing it. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's weird. I just after that I just never really looked back. I don't think I even thought twice about going into animation. I mean, I still admired it from afar, and I think the best part about learning so much about animation before going into comic books was I think it kind of gave me an animated background to bring to comic books. I remember when I first was drawing at Jim's studio, even though I got hired, there was a lot of talk about, oh, he draws the eyes really big, or he draws like the head's kind of big, and like it was these animation sort of things I was doing kind of that weren't really very comic booky.
Right.
And I think I was drawing like girls like smiling and making expressions, and that was that was the era of the gritting face with all the cross hatching holding the big
Right.
gun. So I think I was like a little bit like I even think like I think because it was funny because I'm sitting here like drawing my Gen 13 books with all the big pretty girls or with the pretty grins and listening to like soundtracks to like the animated movies, and I think Mark Silvestri is like, I think he plays for the other team, and I was going. I was like, no, I'm just really into this is all. But,
well, one of the things I loved about your work was it always had this sort of charm to it, this sort of like fun to it that I think was something that everyone responded to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's funny, you actually hit on why I kind of picked this theme with the Saturday morning cartoons. I kind of feel like, in a way, that's been sort of a secret to my success, is always kind of tapping into that 10-year-old mindset or that 13-year-old mindset. I kind of never really got out of that way of thinking, kind of in a weird way. Like I always feel like that's what I'm always drawing for in some weird way, is still that kid in me that got really excited by comic books.
Yeah, I think that shows through. I think there's the enthusiasm is definitely part of your work.
Yeah, they could definitely see the animation influence. Were you ever influenced by? I'm asking whether. I think it's pretty clear, but Robert McGinnis's work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very actually, that came later. Actually, which is funny because you're right. He has those elongated figures, which are very kind of they're kind of similar in some ways with what Arthur was kind of doing in the 80s, with everybody kind of being very elongated. And yeah, no, it's funny. When I finally discovered and put it together, because I realized I had seen his work my whole life and never realized, oh, that's the same guy doing this James Bond poster and this book cover. And so yeah, that kind of came about, I think, later. I think him and Gil Elfgren were the two that kind of came about later, probably preceding my Danger Girl work, and I was really influenced by both those guys kind of going into that. In fact, I think it was Joe Chido, who was the colorist who worked with Jim, who kind of got me hip to all that stuff. I was kind of unaware of those guys, and when he showed them to me, I was like, oh my god, this is my new. These guys are my new guru. Like I like worship at the altar of those guys. They're and I still do. I mean, it's like anytime they have a new book, I always buy even if I have all the same pictures, I just buy it again.
When did you
from Chido?
Say again?
What's he up to? What's Joe Chido up to?
It's a great question. I believe he's still I think he's living in San Diego still. I know he had a couple of kids a few years back. I know when he had kids, he kind of became a bit of a stay-at-home dad. I think kind of happily went into that sort of stage of life, I think, but I still see his work pop up here and there. I think I've seen a cover of his somewhat recently. I can't remember what it was for, but I think he just kind of takes it easy, I guess, a bit. I don't know. I mean, that's my assumption. I haven't seen him in years.
Yeah, I miss seeing his work.
Yeah, no, it's his stuff's great. I mean, he put out a few card series, I think, and a couple art books, as I recall.
Yeah, I had all those things. I had everything that Homage put out, so it's cool.
When did you discover Mort Drucker? Because I can definitely see the love of Mort in your work sometimes when you're doing, like likenesses and stuff.
Yeah. No, actually, it's funny you mentioned Mort Drucker, and thanks for noticing it. I mean, I think Dan and I definitely have a Mort obsession, as I recall in comics.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, I kind of skipped over that whole part. Actually, Mort Drucker was really the very first influence that I can think of. Actually, I think I found my first Mad magazine when I was like maybe in middle school, which I think is probably an age most people find their first Mad magazine, at least back then. And yeah, I think it was like Yoda was on the cover with the Alfred E. Newman face. It was for like The Empire Strikes Black or something like that. And yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, because I was so into Star Wars at the time, so to see this like this comic version of all the characters I loved from Star Wars looking like them but not like them, it was like pretty awesome. In fact, actually, that was probably the first style I kind of tried to emulate, and it never really left. I still feel like I've got quite a bit of that Mort Drucker way of thinking that just I can't shake. And for a while, I actually kind of shied away from having it show up in my comic book work because I kind of was afraid that it would maybe derail what I was trying to do. So I kind of didn't really let it slip in. But in recent years, or not even recent years, I'd say in the last like 10 or 15 years, I kind of didn't really care at that point.
I remember seeing that you did was it a Buffy?
Yeah, I did. I did do a couple Buffy covers actually. Yeah, one in particular that was very sort of like quasi caricature-ish.
Yeah, that was a great one, Jeff.
But that was kind of cool because when I discovered that, Frazetta kind of had that part of his style too, where here's Frazetta doing these amazing fantasy paintings, but then he would do those sort of like
those movie posters.
Yeah, those like Pink Panther looking ones where everybody's running and stuff like that with the big heads. I was kind of like, oh, this is very Mad magazine actually, and I think Frazetta did that really great Ringo Starr.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Mad magazines, that was great. So yeah, so no, I love Mort Drucker. In fact, I was super bummed to see that he passed because he was kind of the one sort of artistic hero of mine that was alive that I never got a chance to actually meet in person. And there was one year at Comic-Con, I didn't know he was there, and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh my God, Mort Drucker's just finishing up a signing over on aisle blah blah blah." And I was like, oh my God, no way. And I ran there as fast as I could and I missed him. And that was like my one opportunity. I might have been able to meet the guy. But yeah, that was a bummer. I would have loved to meet that guy. I mean, I'm sure, from what I hear, he's a very sweet guy, but it might have been one of those things where it just would have been a hi and that's it. But and I've been very fortunate enough to not just meet many of my artistic heroes, but in many cases become friendly with them, which is great. But that was the one where I was like, yeah, I kind of wish there had been that moment where I could have met the guy. Did you ever meet him, Dan? Did you?
No, I never did. It would have been nice, but I wish.
I know there's an artist named Steven Silver who does a lot of caricature work, and I think he hung out with him quite a bit and even did a few interviews you can find online in recent years. And yeah.
Steven does a lot of animation stuff.
He does a lot of the design, right? I think didn't he do Kim Possible or something? Yeah. And he does amazing, really differently stylized caricature work, I know.
Had you discovered Mort when you were doing designs for Gen 13?
No. This was going back to when I was like a middle school or something like that. In fact, actually, I even did like my own version of Mad Magazine in middle school where I would kind of do caricatures with the teachers, and I published it and sold it in the hallways like like something in the Wonder Years or something. But yeah, and it was like, but no, I loved his work way back then. In fact, actually, I kind of had to try to unlearn it to some degree when I got really into Arthur and Jim Lee and stuff like that, because I had to kind of try to teach myself not to do the ciphers I was doing with, because there's a certain kind of Mort Drucker cipher, these little wiggly lines and these sort of scratchy things he does. Weirdly enough, I've actually tried to incorporate that back into my work when I started inking myself about 10 years ago, because I wanted a raw, less slick look. So it sounds funny to say that because people say my inks are very slick, but I'm actually always trying to get kind of crooked lines and not perfectly even lines when I'm doing my work, because I kind of don't want that super slick look. I like that little bit of dirt and that sort of that look that Mort Drucker had, and all those guys in that era where it just had a grit to it.
Yeah, it was very hard to kind of unlearn all the stuff I had kind of grown up.
Right. Yeah.
Doing,
we were probably on a similar journey there.
Yeah, because like right now, I'll show some squigglies. Let's see here. see if it can. Like there's some on the fist. You can kind of see.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I love doing that sort of work, and he's a big influence.
That's a good Thundar face. It kind of reminds me of the Beastmaster. He has that. Who was that actor? Mark Singer, was that his name?
Yeah, I was trying to channel
that.
there. But let's see here. Let's see. Speaking of squiggly lines and slick lines, Dave is drawing Tom Slick.
Oh.
Yeah, you got to play that theme song, Dan.
Let me see if I can. Hold on. Let's see if I can get it going here. Hold on. Gotta share screen. Without Ben here, we're a mess.
Yeah, what happened? He just lost internet connection?
Yeah, I think something happened there. Here we go, Dave. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
I'm trying.
That's the ticket.
He's the best of all the guys. Tom Slick in the Thunderbolt. He's slapper once he's on your tail. He won't quit because you know there's no such word as fail to Tom Slick. Tom Slick. One of America's fastest growing sports is drag racing, an exciting competition where way-out-looking machines take the green light for a quarter-mile burst of blinding speed.
There you go.
So good.
Always love that voiceover guy. That almost looked like the same animation house that did the Schoolhouse Rock or something like that. Had that kind of.
I think it is.
I'm sure it was.
Do you remember Gertie's Garage, Dave?
No. What the hell's that?
What kind of Tom Slick fan are you?
Well, I didn't say I was a super fan. I just love the theme song more than anything.
Let's take a look at your drawing here. God, I wish Ben was here.
Is it possible he'll pop back in, or is he out for good?
Oh, he's
possible.
He's free. He's doing something fun.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Now, that's beautiful, Dave. It's a little bit of God, what's his name? Rat Fink.
Yeah, for course.
Yeah.
Which is very present in that opening credits, actually. I guess that was kind of maybe possibly the influence.
Do any of you guys like this character?
Oh, Space Ghost.
I might have heard of him.
Yeah.
It's good times.
Apparently hung out with some people. I don't trust that praying mantis.
Yeah, nice side eye going.
Let's see.
Dan, what do you think of this?
Look at this.
Oh, nice.
That's how much work Joe has done since we're all gabbing like idiots.
Joe, are you inking with like a dip brush, like an actual dipping in an ink brush?
What? That stuff?
Yeah.
No.
That's not the
Surgery there. So actually, I created this effect. Yeah, let me do it this way. Created this effect was done in Photoshop. So I actually printed just sort of this little slice of it onto the board to save myself the aggravation. And now I'm just filling in the blacks, and I drew the actual figure onto the board. So
nice.
That's looking smarter. That's for sure.
That's really smart.
I never did that effect that way. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Man, that's super cool. I'm still just drawing mine.
Oh boy!
Oh my God, I'm.
Well, that's
that's
awesome, Jeff.
Nice.
That is so
you know,
cool.
we almost had 3 Thundars. Dan,
Oh, were you gonna do Thunder?
Yeah,
Thunder was my first guess or my first choice actually.
He's so much fun with the Sun Sword and
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was the first cartoon I thought of when I was like Saturday morning cartoons. It's always my go-to.
Yeah, Jeff, you stole my thunder.
No, I'm sure. I mean, he's just standing there.
Look,
Right.
let's see. It's beautiful.
That's nice. I like that you guys are working in the fonts and the logos.
I spent most of my time figuring out the destroyed buildings. I had to look up Akira.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Now, do any of you guys have the broken moon in the sky? That would be my go-to.
I thought about
Yeah,
it.
right. Yeah, that would be smart.
Like, how do you not have that broken moon?
Yeah, that would be that. That's the classic.
Yep.
But to answer your question, no, none of us have.
No, none of us have.
Oh, I knew I should have done it.
Well, I was gonna have Jack Kirby mooning in the sky.
Oh, there you go. That's money in the bank.
Yeah, fans want that.
Let's see, Jeff's. What are you working on? Which one are you doing?
I'm doing. I got Daphne going on here. She looks a little revealing here because I'm still working
Oh.
on the shape.
A little bit of underdrawing.
I know there's some. Well, it's what I do. My technique is I'll do a little drawing like this. So this is what I'll work out, like to get gestures and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then I'll blow that up on the computer to this, lightbox it, and then you've got an underdrawing here. That's as far as I could get before doing this. But there's a slight underdrawing. I erased it, but the ghost is there for me to see. So I got Daphne going here. I'm not sure that is Daphne. No, Daphne. Velma. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
They're going to take away my cartoon.
I was going to say that's a pretty good Scooby-Doo gesture drawing.
Oh, thank you. That was it's funny because whenever I do this kind of stuff, it's that finding that line between, okay, my style's not as cartoony as the show, but not realistic as, like, let's say Alex Ross. So it's this weird middle ground. So like I actually have to look up real dog anatomy to kind of like fill in those missing pieces kind of from the animated show.
A few years ago, I did one of the Scooby-Doo movies with Hulk Hogan was supposed to be in it.
Yeah.
And it was also it was the drag racing cars and boats and whatnot.
Oh, Wacky Racers.
It was Scooby-Doo, and they all had their vehicles, and they were on a cross-country road race, and it had the wrestlers, and I had the hardest time with Scooby-Doo. That for some reason the nose and the way his face works always messed me up. It's because it's hard. He's great from one angle, but moving him in 3 dimensions is a pain.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like I feel like he's got that same rule book that like Daffy Duck has, where Daffy Duck only really works from like a couple of angles, but then the bill starts to fall apart if you're kind of like not drawing Daffy Duck from those particular angles that work, you know?
Right.
It seems like
you have to snap Scooby from one position to the next.
Right.
Those transitions are hard.
Yeah, those locked off like 3/4 shots that everybody recognizes them from.
Yeah. But you nailed it. You got it good.
Oh, well, we'll see if I can land the plane, as they say. Well, I got a good start there. Apparently, Velma's giving me trouble. I'm not sure. I guess I picked a pose that isn't really coming together quite as fast. I know she has a fan base kind of too. There's always all those cosplay of Velma online. When I was looking up reference, I was like, oh yeah, there's all those shots. But
I bet there is. So what are you working on right now, Jeff?
I just finished a bunch of covers last week by the skin of my teeth for the Joker book that's coming out. And that's like a series of exclusives that'll be on my website. But I usually do these artist official exclusives, that kind of thing. And then this next coming week, or starting tomorrow, I have to do some revisions on some statues that I'm doing through Sideshow.
Oh, right on.
They're doing a series based on a fairy tale line that I did a series of calendars for a few years ago, and it's kind of an ongoing project where I kind of do my own spin on like fairy tale characters. So there was 4 of them that have been completed so far, and I'm doing another wave of 3 of them. So it's pretty involved. I wish I could show them on camera. They're kind of still top secret, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it's cool and it's not cool because there's a lot of like for instance, I have to sometimes figure out like this is what the crossbow looks like and show it from 3 different angles, and it's very much in the world of animation in that sense because sometimes it's the stuff that's not fun. But
you do a full turn for the statue to work?
I do, and sometimes I'll even do I'll usually do a full turn for the body, a full turn for the head. Sometimes the base itself needs a full turn, and I mean it gets pretty involved. I mean, because there's revisions, and sometimes getting my style isn't the easiest thing because I really want to make sure that these have not just my designs, but really look like my drawings.
Look.
Yeah, so that takes up quite a bit of time, but I've been really happy with the results so far. I mean, the statues so far that have come out have been really, really pretty awesome. They do an amazing job there. And now that I'm actually in California, well, before the Rona, that is, I could actually go down and actually pop in at Sideshow and actually see them doing the paint mock-ups, which is really cool to be able to do that.
Do they still build them with clay, or they do 3D modeling?
They do 3D modeling, but what's cool is they'll output them. They'll 3D print them, and then they'll do the ones that they usually market with while they're being produced overseas is usually them painting a 3D printout so that they can kind of get a pretty good idea of what the finished product's going to look like.
Jeff, next time you visit, we can go check them out and show you their studios. It's really, really, I mean, it's like a Disney World for.
Oh my God, yeah, isn't it though?
Yeah.
I think that might be one of the coolest places of work I've ever seen. And I've checked out Disney at its heyday and all these other places. That Sideshow is amazing. It is so cool, that place.
I'd love to.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And they love comic books over there. They're very big fans, and so.
Excellent. Any fan questions for Jeff?
I don't know, Ben. Do we have any?
I'm trying to scroll back here.
Oh, Ben's back.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben. Hi, Ben.
We got the eye candy back.
That's
You
it.
know, the ladies come for Ben.
Yeah.
All the ladies. No, I don't see any other than somebody wanted to know if Jeff has a finger lump.
A finger lump. I do usually, but I actually.
Ouch.
I must have been doing more computer work this last week because it's actually not as big as it. If I come out at the end of a deadline, it's pretty substantial. Any of you guys get that? Is that I know I hold my pen in apparently a strange way. I've been told so. But,
Yeah, let's see your weird way of holding the pen.
This is me with this death grip where it kind of locks around.
You put your thumb under the. That's
how I've
fascinating.
always done it. You know what's even weirder, Jeff, is that apparently I thought this was something unique to me. My sister does it too, and apparently my dad says he did it too until he broke his finger playing baseball in high school, and that's the only way he learned how to hold it correctly.
Whoa, that seems like it seems like putting a lot of pressure on your trying to do it right now.
And you know what's funny is it's actually the exact opposite. In fact, when I will sign like this, sometimes when I do fan signings, I actually will simply sign my name like this. My hand cramps up more doing this than like this, actually. I could draw like this for hours, and it never bothers me a bit. But
that's fascinating. I'll have to try that.
It's kind of weird. And I think when I was doing Gen 13, my inker Alex Garner he'd hold it like this and do this kind of thing. And I think Eric Larson apparently draws it too. I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Doesn't Eric do it
like a monkey?
Right? Doesn't he? Because isn't he left-handed and then does it like this? Yeah. Cool.
So there you go. Finger lump questions.
Done.
Let's see. There was another question up here asking about Gen 13. If you have any plans to ever revisit.
You know, Gen 13 isn't really my property to revisit. That's the weird thing about Gen 13 is I don't really have the ability to decide to return to it or not. It's not really. I did do a story not that long ago for Gen 13 where they did I think it was like what was it? It was like a 25th anniversary edition of like where it was like a Wildstorm sort of hold on, let me switch cameras. It was like a Wildstorm 25th anniversary volume or something they put out. It was kind of like a hardcover, and they did like Jim went back and did another Wildcat story, and we all did like little snippets of like that era. And I actually did a 3-page Gen 13 story that was like Gen 13 if they were around now. And so like they had like the characters like had like Tinder, and like they were like one of them I was allergic to gluten. I was trying to hit all like the sort of things that weren't around when Gen 13 was like in its heyday. So it was kind of like Gen 13 with all the hot button things of the day. But it was funny drawing Scooby-Doo here right now is I actually thought the mistake that's been made when they would relaunch Gen 13 over the years, in my opinion, was follow the Scooby-Doo model. Scooby-Doo, like they keep staying the same age. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if the world is advancing. They're always kind of these quasi college kids that just kind of like have that attitude and that energy. Like, Shaggy's not suddenly like 50 or something like that, or like sometimes I think comic books, I mean, they do and they don't, because obviously certain characters don't really age. But there was this weird pressure that Gen 13s, they had to age or something. I was going, no, they don't. Like, does Archie age? Do any of these characters age? So I just thought, guys, the formula is if you do go back and make Gen 13 again, is just make them the same age and they exist now. You know, that's the only difference. You know.
Absolutely. Did you design the characters from scratch, or did Jim design those characters?
It really was an amalgam of the both of us. I mean, Jim definitely did the bigger share of the design. Like, for instance, Fairchild, he definitely had like a drawing of her that was pretty much what she ended up looking like. I mean, she looked a little more She-Hulkish kind of, but not in the build, just kind of like she had that swimsuit kind of thing that like She-Hulk had. And I think we kind of more or less kept that look. And then he did have a beefy guy that at the time I didn't know if he'd be of Asian descent. I think Grunge is kind of Hawaiian or Asian. I don't know what exactly he was, but he had that sort of look. And but one of the characters, Freefall, in the group, that was actually a character I came up with in high school. And he had just like a generic girl with a jacket, and I had this girl with a jacket. And I said, hey, what about this girl being that girl? And it was this girl with a pink streak in her hair. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So that got to be my character. And I think I eventually got a co-creator credit after the miniseries retroactively, because I think I kind of, they gave me the credit for having kind of developed these characters to be actual characters and not just designs on a piece of paper. I mean, I kind of gave them their personalities and their sort of like nuanced their look enough that I think they felt, which was really kind of Jim and to do it at the time, give me a retroactive co-creator credit, which was really nice. But yeah, as far as returning back to it, I don't really have, that's deep in the DC vaults at this point. I don't even know if they even know they have it at this point.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how much stuff just sort of gets put on the shelf, even though I think fans would love to see it again.
Yeah, you know what? My biggest, the thing that bums me out the most about Gen 13 is Gen 13. There was a good like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years there where Gen 13, and I'm not just putting this on me. I mean, everybody who did stuff with Gen 13 was like the book at that studio. I mean, that was like a big part of that, the identity for Wildstorm Studios at the time. And it bums me out to no end that it's out of print. Like, it hasn't, that's like the one thing I've done that's just like, you can't go and find it anywhere. And I think, I could be wrong, but the way it was explained to me is they don't know where the files are. So,
what? Really?
So I think it's one of these things where I don't think they can reprint it because nobody knows where these they could make it from. They'd have to like literally put it back together again from like pieces or something. It's really kind of a shame. So yeah, so I'm super bummed that like people can't really even have. There's no way to have an omnibus or whatever there's no way to put it all together apparently right now. So I'm kind of bummed that part of my history.
That is fucking heartbreaking.
It is kind of it bums me out actually. I try not to think about it.
Thanks.
No more Gen 13 questions.
Wow, that sucks. All right, yeah, let's move on. So so you do mostly cover stuff and other like sculpture stuff. Do you still do any sequential work?
I mean, here and there, it doesn't come up very often. I think my most recent one is I did some sequentials in Spawn 300. That was probably not last summer, but the summer before that. I think that was I did a short story in there, but it doesn't come up that often. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the stuff. You know, like I said, I love to draw, but I think at some point I was like not sure if I loved sequentials. I mean, I enjoy them, but I think I'm just at a point in life where for me, it's just I find them more of a hassle than anything, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing the covers because I like the variety. I like being able to jump from one thing to the next. It's cool. It just seems to be a nice fit for me. Plus, I've kind of enjoyed over the last few years being able to dabble in other types of projects, like things that are kind of like in a comic book style, but like like I said, the statue design or designing games, things like that. These sorts of things I think are kind of like just more exciting to me right now. Sometimes I compare it to I'm a big fan of Walt Disney and how his career kind of went. It sort of seemed like each decade Walt Disney had a particular interest. Like he first was interested in the Mickey shorts, and then he was interested in making feature films, and then he was interested in TV, and then he was interested in the theme parks. You know, he kind of had these seasons of his life where he kind of moved on to other interests. And I think I kind of relate to that in the sense that there was a point when I was really into sequentials, and I just don't know if I have that same love of it that I did then, you know, if that makes any sense.
It does. So you mentioned you did some video game stuff. What was that?
Well, I have. I'm working on something. It's funny. I don't want to. I don't even want to say it's a video game. It's in that realm, but I'm developing something right now that I hope will be sort of in that range. It's kind of hard to. I don't want to tip my hat too much, but it's in that world kind of, and it would incorporate my art style into it, which I think would be very exciting if it actually gets off the ground. But we did do a video game on Gen 13. Quite a few years, not Gen 13, I'm sorry, Danger Girl. So I did have some experience in doing that, and I've done some covers for video games. But yeah, I can't say it's something I do a lot of.
If you could draw any mainstream like character, and you were into doing the sequentials, which would it be?
I mean, for the longest time, it was Spider-Man, and I have a famous project that almost got off the ground with Jeff Loeb. And there are many versions of that story why that didn't happen, but it was definitely probably the thing I wanted to. I mean, there's actually 2 issues in the can, by the way. I mean, some people don't even know that there's 2 issues that exist. I mean, Joe's probably seen them. I mean, they do exist somewhere in a drawer somewhere. But that project just kind of kept getting bumped, and for various reasons, it just kind of kept getting behind, and continuity kind of marched on. And then it just kind of fell apart when it got out of continuity because it stopped making sense. And at the time, Jeff more so than me, I think, was really caught up in it being in continuity. And that's certainly legit. I mean, I don't begrudge him for that. I think I was less caught up in it needing to be in the chronology of like sort of what was going on in Spider-Man, but he had a lot of success with that. And at the time it was kind of structured to be kind of like a Hush that he had done with Jim Lee, but like for Spider-Man. So there was, and that was very much in the continuity of Batman. So I think that was sort of the idea, and it was just hard to let that go, I think. But that was something I was really excited about. I don't know if I'd be as excited about it now, because at the time I had this hunger to draw Spider-Man. I hadn't drawn Spider-Man. And now I've done so many covers and things. It's not as new as it would have been back then. So I kind of have mixed feelings if I would still have that same enthusiasm for Spider-Man that I had back then. But I think like all of us, I think we all probably, I'm guessing a lot of you guys are probably the same. It's like there's Spider-Man and there's Batman and then there's the rest. I think it's always kind of how I look at like the dream projects, but that's just kind of how I think.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's definitely a Spider-Man itch, to be sure.
Yeah, and it also Spider-Man just really lent itself to my particular style because, again, going back to the animation thing, there's just like a bendy, exaggerated quality to Spider-Man that really lends itself to sort of not sticking to reality in the same way that you might with other characters. And I think also too, I always gravitated to that's why I love the Marvel characters so much in general, because they weren't the typical Ken doll muscle bound. Like sometimes when you see the Justice League all standing there, they're almost the exact same body with just different heads and costumes and cape colors. But when you see the Marvel lineup lined up, they're almost always like different shapes and sizes and heights. And I think that's always why Marvel appealed to me, probably more so than DC, because I just love that variety, and that really caters to the animation lover in me, that you can read a character from silhouette, versus it just being sort of like where you can't quite tell which character with a cape that is if it's silhouetted, which is sometimes the case of DC.
So that's the question for if you were gonna one of the Marvel or DC characters. Do you have plans for more create your own stuff?
I mean, I do, in the sense that like like I said, I've really enjoyed kind of like coming up with ways to come up with one-off images, which is like sort of like what I've been doing with these fairy tale. I mean, they're pre-existing properties, but I usually will take it and kind of do my own twist on it in a way that actually makes it really satisfying in a creator sort of way. And that's what allowed me to sort of do these statues and these sorts of things, because like I can kind of, get that sort of creative Jones that way. I'm also still dabbling occasionally with my Danger Girl property, but I'm just kind of exploring new areas with it. Like, could I maybe do a board game with it, for instance, or could I do like maybe perhaps like playing cards or something? Like I like the idea of doing more with Danger Girl, but kind of like coming up with ways to get these drawings in the hands of people that maybe where they might revisit it over and over again, like if it's a board game or something like that. So I think that's kind of, I for some reason, I don't know how you guys are like this. I'd be curious what you guys think. I kind of sometimes think sometimes it bums me out even, like, I mean, I don't want to put down, I don't want to put down CGC because like, it's kind of like I do a lot of work for them and I actually really like the company. I like that they cater to a need that I think is very in demand. But sometimes there's something that's sad to me that this comic book gets sealed away in plastic and you can't open it anymore. Like it's just there's something really weirdly tragic about that. I don't know what so even though I'm participating in it, like I'm kind of more grateful than ever that I'm doing the covers, because it's like, well, the cover's still there. It's like, because the rest is like, well, this comic book that somebody slaved over and probably was like up late at night trying to make sure he got all the pages done. It's like sealed away forever in this shell, this coffin. And I'm like, that's so weird. But so sometimes I get bummed out just by the sort of disposableness that sometimes people put into the like. One of the things that used to get me so bummed out when I was doing Danger Girl was I was pouring probably a ridiculous amount of work into it, and it was probably just a given I was going to burn out from it because I was just not pacing myself. I was pouring just a ton of effort into each page. I want each page to be this ridiculous masterpiece, and that's not saying it was. I'm just saying that's my mindset at the time. And I would just be so exhausted and so depleted after each issue, and I'd go online after it came out and I'd check the message boards to see like, oh, what are people saying? And people liked it, but very often the comment would be, oh, I read that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd go like, 5 minutes? Like, that's like me watching like the latest like Nolan film on fast forward or something. I was kind of going like, geez, like, are they just literally reading as fast as they read the word balloons? And I was just like, it was really kind of defeating to me. And I kind of like would see this often more and more. And I think I got just kind of down about sort of like the fact that we work so hard on these pages, and then they kind of like flip through it and then they close it up and put it in a bag or put it sealed in plastic. And it's kind of like, maybe they'll return to it eventually, but it's kind of so quickly they move on. And I think that just kind of started to get to me. So by doing the covers, I feel like the covers have a longer lifespan. Like I do the covers and then I see them repeatedly and people get them signed and then I see them pop up and if they get a CGC, the cover's on the front, and then also too, I think, there's just something like when I was mentioning this fairy tale project I do, I did the very first one about 10 years ago, and it was done as a calendar. And again, this is going back to my Gil Elfgren influence, where he did the pinup calendars that were in mechanics workshops and stuff like that. And my thought was, I want to do something like that, but my twist will be, it'll be like pinup with the fairy tale pinup. So it's kind of like a wink and kind of cheesecakey, but it's also got this fantasy element. And the thing I loved about it that I didn't really think about at the time was, well, now somebody has to stare at this piece of artwork for 30 days. they can't like put it away. They can't like, oh, I flipped through those 22 pages in like 5 minutes and like that was such a fast read. Now they had to like look at 12 pieces of art for a whole year. So to me, that was like really satisfying. It kind of like changed my whole like perception, which is why it's so hard sometimes to go back to even thinking about interiors, because I've been spoiled in that way,
Yeah, that is impressive. Yeah, they're looking at that one drawing for a really long time.
I mean, that's my spin on that.
I like it.
Should try wallpaper.
Right.
You know what, Ben? I actually would consider that.
Excellent.
So someone else had asked about Danger Girl. So other than things that, like you're talking about, different diversity type production of it, you don't have any plans to do anything as far as going back and revisiting the book?
I mean, I never say never. I think I would have to. For a long time, I just was kind of like burnt out from it. I think burnout's something that sometimes I think I feel when I do interior work. It's just too much of the same thing, which again, probably why I didn't go into animation probably. But I've often considered possibly if I went back to Danger Girl, I would probably undoubtedly, these ears do not like Scooby-Doo. What I would do is reimagine it, because I feel like I love the energy of it, but I think I just think differently now. So I think I would just kind of reimagine it and kind of like try to see where I could go with it if I kind of took the idea and what it would look like now, And that's not to say that I'm placating to like a political leaning or anything like that. I just think I see it differently now. I would still be very purely me, and I'm sure there'd be things that wouldn't be necessarily completely PC or whatever it is, because I know sometimes parts of the book didn't age the way that sort of the social consciousness did. But I just think I would probably like just tweak it and change some things just because I want to be re-inspired myself. So that's most likely what I would do. I don't know how the fans would think of that, if they would like that or think that that's sort of that probably the hardcore fans wouldn't be the biggest fan, but I think I might court new fans if I did something like that. I think that might be a fun way to get new energy into an older book like that.
Well, I mean, how old were you when you made Danger Girl the first?
Oh my gosh, I was 25, I think, at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lifetime ago.
Oh my God, yeah. No, I already did the majority of the work I did on Gen 13, Danger Girl before I was even 30. So it's kind of strange actually to think back on it now. I haven't really done a lot of interior work in my 30s and 40s, but yeah, most of it was in my 20s for sure.
Yeah.
Ted wants to know if you have any plans to do an artist edition of Danger Girl.
I would love to. The problem with that is you have to have access to the original art. And while I do have some of the original art, I do not have quantities that would sort of give me that level of. I mean, I'd have to. There's a guy that I think we've discovered, or maybe he made himself known to us, who had quite a bit of the Gen 13 work that I did, and I think he might have some of the a good portion of the Danger Girl stuff, or knows another guy who does. And I think we'd have to almost like find a collector who has a huge collection like that and see if we can piece it together. But I don't think we'd ever be able to piece together enough to do a definitive. I think they call them archive editions or something if they don't have all the pieces or something. But yeah, I wish I would have thought of that. And I'm sure most of us do. I wish I would have thought to have those kind of scans back in the day. I didn't. None of us, I think, saw that coming. And I think only a few artists, I think, have their original pages to the degree where they can do something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was for most of the stuff back in the '90s. I just have terrible Xeroxes.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I don't think that would count for what they're looking for, but yeah, yeah, and you're right about terrible. I always have those streaks going through.
Oh yeah, because you were just like, you just had to get the photocopy just in case FedEx lost the
yes,
lost
exactly. I mean, I remember having my own Xerox machine in my house and thinking that was like really cutting edge technology.
Fancy.
Yeah, that's very true. So yeah, I don't know. It would be great to have something like that, but I just don't see how that would ever come to be, I think, at this point.
It's going to break Scott Dunbar's heart.
I've actually had this very conversation with Scott Dunbar, actually, and yeah, I think that's. I think he might be the one who knows who the guy is who has the Gen 13 pages, though. So we were talking about if we ever did try to piece together Gen 13 back in a republishable form, that might be the way we'd have to go.
That's cool.
Dunbar likes spending weeks on that scavenger hunt, and
he actually does.
Sitting in people's living rooms with a scanner.
Yeah, this is true. I think he does enjoy that. He loves feeling like he's a archaeologist in that sense.
Comic book
art. He is.
All right. I don't think. Hey Dan, let me see your Thundar face.
All right, let's see here.
No, he means make a Thundar face.
Yeah, make a Thundar face.
Make a Thundar face? They got cameras. You don't want that face.
Just go scan his Twitter. You can find it.
Yeah.
I
for sure.
of me on there today. Friend of mine did some apparel and foolishly sent me some.
Teen model Dan Panosian.
Now, Dan, your workflow seems like you've really got it refined now. I mean, looking at that Superman story, I mean, to not only pencil, ink, letter, color. I mean, like that Thundar piece. When did you start that today? Like to get that far with
You started it as soon as you heard I was doing one, Jeff.
Yeah. Like, how can I stop Jeff? I probably started this around 4 or 3:30.
Wow, well done, man. You are a machine.
But it's I mean, there's almost no backgrounds, but it's still what I really struggled on this hand in particular, for some reason. It's just a regular hand. There's nothing that I haven't drawn 100 times, but it just gave me a lot of trouble. I don't know why.
Sometimes that's the case. Actually, I did a Dazzler cover recently for some X-Men covers I did, and I did the disco era Dazzler. And there's a hand, and it was a hand I've drawn 1,000,000 times. She just like outreached, just like reaching for the stars like Dazzler does. And this hand, I'm not kidding that I redrew it probably, I would say 12 times. I mean, and I actually was gonna kind of it was my secret shame for a second there. But I think that's the thing that's kind of cool to be at this point in where a lot of us are in our career. Like the 20-year-old me would keep that hidden so that nobody could see how many times I tried to redraw her hand. But these days I get off on posting stuff like that. Like I did a post of the behind the scenes, and I took a grainy ass close up of that hand, and you could see all the fingers that were erased. And I just wanted up and comers to say see, I didn't know what I was doing with this hand. I eventually figured it out, hopefully, but
struggling.
This was like a mess for a while there. Sometimes that's just, even though we do this as long as we do, or I have done it, it's just some days you just it just doesn't want to fit in the.
What happened with me? I finally have to say, look, you know how to do this. This isn't, I had to convince myself I could do it. It's very strange.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Sometimes the right combination of lines, it just eludes you.
Yeah, it does. Or sometimes in my case, what I find is I'll eventually get it, but it looks so stiff and so the fight is so apparent that I had with it. I'll start over just because I failed because it looks so rigid and it doesn't have the flow of everything else on the page. So then I'll just do it again just for that reason. Because I don't want it to look like I slaved over it. I want it to look like it just happened.
Your work does have that very effortless look. Let's take one last look at Joe's thing. I think Joe's got to take off soon.
Yeah, I gotta get going, guys. So
I gotta leave too.
Good seeing you again, Joe.
What was that?
Oh, Joe, that looks great, man.
Wow,
Thanks.
That's awesome.
and that's for Ben's personal collection, right?
It is.
He's already got dibs.
Dibs.
All right, boys, I'm out.
All right, Joe, it's good hanging.
Well, good seeing you.
Nice Space Ghost, brother.
Bye.
The best part of the show when Joe takes off.
You finally be ourselves now.
Yeah.
You get Joe for half a show, me for half a show.
Yeah.
Dave, that came out very nice. You did it.
Dave, I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Dave.
That's awesome, man.
Jeff, let's see yours. Can we? And I don't mean Scott, now that I know the proper way to.
I'm just glad there's somebody else who I'm sure I'm still far behind all of you guys, but you did a lot in that time since you showed me last.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I still think his face isn't. I mean, it's not. The thing about the Thundar face, the Toth design is kind of handsome.
It is, yeah. It's got that jaw. And
I did not catch that. This guy's a brute.
But yours has a cool, golden kind of vibe. It's kind of it reminds me of a really cool golden cover, or Michael. Golden.
Thanks, man.
His hair looks a little bit He-Man-ish.
Well, it kind of was that way, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's got a weird little Dutch boy.
Yeah.
Did they rip that off? Because that definitely preceded He-Man, I think, didn't it?
Probably ripped off from Prince Valiant.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of a Prince Valiant cut.
They're probably saying, "What's a barbarian? What does a barbarian look like? Or what's someone from that time period?" There's only one, because that's typical with comic book people. We're all just like, well, let me see who came before.
Yeah. Dan, let's see yours again.
Okay, let me see here.
All right, nice.
Man, nice. You and Dave look like you're about to put yours to bed. Like they look already
Yeah.
I can't believe I actually beat Dan for once.
Jeez Louise, I haven't even finished penciling mine yet.
Oh, neither. It's gonna be a late night for me if I try to. This might be a Sunday post, guys. I hope that doesn't screw up your.
Oh no, don't worry about it. Take your time. We're just glad. Thanks for coming to hang out, Jeff.
Oh no, I mean, hey, it's my pleasure, man. I would always kind of peek in from afar. I'd usually pop in here and there, but it was. As I was joking with Dan, I said I knew this day would come eventually, Dan. I knew you'd. I knew you'd ask me.
Well, I've been bugging him for a while, honestly. So.
Yeah. No, it was. I think I miscalculated because I thought I was going to have time last week, and then I think I broke it to Dan. I said, "Man, I am so behind right now on this deadline. I think I'm not going to be my best." And that was very nice of you to delay the.
Of course, I mean it's all about us just having fun. So there's
Now, how many of these have you guys done at this point? Because I know you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah,
to check the.
I think we're over 100, right?
Nice.
It's over a year and a half now, right? So.
Yeah, we try to do it every week, but we don't always succeed.
Right.
I don't think we've hit 100.
Good discipline, guys.
Yeah.
If we hit 100 episodes, we probably should have done some sort of 100th episode.
Right. Well, we should probably pay attention to that kind of thing.
That would have been a big deal. On a very special drink and draw.
Yeah, exactly. We have to market it that way.
We're trained professionals here.
Yeah. We all went to broadcasting school. Dan, that came out really great. Hey, can we see yours, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's nowhere close to where you guys are at. I'm still very much in the construction phase here.
Oh, you chose to do a whole group. That's bananas.
Well, that was part of the appeal of Thundar. I was going okay, you can kind of this the trio, and now I've got I figured well, I can't just do Shaggy and Scoobs. I've got to do at least one of the two girls, and then I was like, well, I probably need to do both the girls. So the only one I don't have on here is Fred, but screw Fred.
Nobody likes him anyway.
He sucks.
Yeah, I might even just get lazy and just leave Shaggy off and just do the two girls and I might just go that route, So
that's where the money's at.
You know what I'm realizing too is, and I kind of know this about myself too, is I cannot draw and talk at the same time. I don't know how you guys do it. I have to zone out and have music on and just totally be focused, because otherwise it's weird. I can listen to a book on tape and I can do other things. I can process information, but I cannot talk. So if an artist calls me up and wants to draw and talk, I will get up and pace around. The artist I'm talking to will get their work done that day. I just can't seem to do both. I've never had that ability.
Do you not, when you do sketches at shows, do you sort of zone out?
That's probably why I don't do a lot of sketches and shows.
Oh.
For that very reason, actually. I kind of I just can't do both. It's definitely a walking and shoot going at the same time kind of thing. So, and also too, I don't know, for me, I started seeing, it must have been in the Facebook era. I just started seeing so many shots of that would pop up on Facebook where people would tag me with the top of my head. I started getting so annoyed with this shot all the time from every show I'd be at, and I was so I kind of just started. If I do sketching, I mean, I totally get that fans want to see you sketching, and I totally get that. That's I see the appeal, but for some reason I just don't like being in this stationary schoolboy position where they're looking down on me doing my homework. I don't know. It's a weird thing I can't get over. And so.
You should have
actually even at sign. I think it was I read somewhere that because there's always at these cons, of course, that as people who are watching, I'm sure must know if they've been to these shows. There's always where we are, and then there's the celebrity signings, and the celebrity signings always have these elevated tables where they're almost looking like the Olympic gods, looking at the fans. And while I don't think that's necessarily what I'm going for, I did like the idea of being eye to eye with them. So to me, whenever we do a setup a show, if I have a booth, I always try to at least get the table like at standing height so I can look at them. And also too, I just find if I'm standing and doing things, I keep my own energy up in some weird way.
Mhm.
But I think it was like, I don't know, there was just something I just didn't like that look of them just peering down on me, like I said, like, are you done yet? Like that kind of like look. It bummed me out for some reason.
Do you remember what John Byrne used to do? He used to bring his own high chair.
Is that right?
Yeah, the thing was huge. I mean, it was literally a step ladder with a seat on it and a baby table that he would then draw on.
Oh my god! Like a lap board? What was he drawing on?
It was like like you've seen
like an
those chairs they put babies in to feed them.
Why do you think that was a good look?
That's so weird.
Yeah, it was so strange. It was like I don't know. I kind of looked at it as, I'm John Byrne. I'm looking down on you.
Yeah, that's
I mean, it was really tall.
Very John Byrne. Yeah, no, I don't want to look down, but I definitely like the idea of looking eye to eye. That one I'm kind of that I kind of am into, because I think because also too, I think in some weird way too. I mean, again, this is I could go on and on about this stuff because I actually do give this thought. I've listened to a lot of books on tape about all this kind of weird stuff. But like to me, there's something I think even they kind of weirdly want to see you eye to eye. I don't know. I kind of think they're almost weirdly disappointed if you're too like small or something. I don't know. I think that's just kind of like it's. I think it's when we meet celebrities too. You're always surprised like, oh, like they're much smaller than I thought they were. So I think when we're on these little kid tables and we're all hunched over, it's like there's something kind of like, oh, that's this little person.
It's uncomfortable to have a conversation with someone when they're seated and you're standing.
It is.
Oh.
It feels like just, again, I always go back to like I'm in school or something. I don't know what it is. That's my go-to.
It's just the psychology of it's weird,
Yeah.
Talk about that like in an office environment that, if your boss brings you in, sits you down and stands.
Right.
They're lording over you.
Right.
And,
Right.
No, definitely. Well, I also kind of thought, again, I mean, you can go too far the other direction with this, like John Byrne. But I think there's an aspect of that always needs to be at least thought of, because I think, with because I also even too like the idea of commissions. I probably think about this stuff too much, but like I almost didn't like the idea of like, oh, this person's meeting me and they're looking forward to it, and immediately I go to a work for a higher position in this person's mind. Suddenly I'm painting their house, and like they're kind of like, have you finished painting the house yet? And I'm like, wait a second, didn't I just meet you and you're excited to meet me? Now I'm like rushing to paint your house or something. I just there's something kind of weird about that. So I started, if I do drawings at shows, what I started doing was, I know a lot of the things basically people want me to draw. So I'll oftentimes, or I'll either that or I'll poll who's there and say like, hey, give me some ideas. And then I'll start drawing it, but nobody knows who it's for. And I retain the control of saying, maybe I'll finish this, maybe I won't. You're watching me draw. But I'm not beholden to anybody, kind of. And most of the time, there's several people who love the drawing afterwards. And I'm not saying it's great, but I think there's a psychology of people watching a drawing being made where they're falling in love with it because you're allowing them to fall in love with it. They're kind of going like, oh my God, I wonder who's going to get that. Oh my gosh. And it's, even if it's a mediocre drawing, I think it's just, there's something about them observing that's kind of a fun thing for everybody involved. So to me, what that kind of allowed me to not have that I'm painting the guy's fence kind of vibe, like I started going like, oh, now I'm actually drawing this thing and it's for my own enjoyment, and maybe I'll sell it or maybe I won't, but everybody kind of wins in that situation in the sense that you don't sort of give up your sort of your position in the whole arrangement, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Well, guys, it's like 7:30.
Is it really?
Joe's gone. Shall we?
Joe had it with us.
Joe had it with us. Shall we maybe wrap up and then have Jeff come back someday and talk more about the project he couldn't talk about tonight?
Out. Why don't you come back and we can chat it up?
Yeah, no, it was fun, guys. Again, I appreciate all the questions. Next time, I think I need to ask you guys more questions to get to know more of what you guys are up to and stuff like that. But it was fun
You know what? Don't finish your drawing and just wait. And then
I'm 2 sheets to the wind now, so I'm
Excellent. How many Moscow Mules have you kicked back?
actually I'm trying to sound like a badass, but I was so busy trying to catch up with you guys. I think I've had 3 sips. I'm nowhere. I did try to make it kind of a double though, so I mean it is kicking in. But
there you go. Excellent. Well, now you're a real drink and draw guy.
Yeah.
This is true. Well, I think especially on cam, anyways. I think I might have done 1 or 2 in the at the cons, but
right.
This is fun. It was neat. Who's do you guys have a victim for your next one yet, or is that?
I think it's going to be Bendis.
Oh, nice. Oh, really? Is that true?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
I worked on before. No, he's actually coming.
We don't believe you, Dan.
I'm guessing they're laughing because of your flakes that haven't shown up in the past.
Yeah. We're all a little dubious.
Oh, very good. Well, the pressure's on, Dan.
Yeah, Dan.
No, I definitely got to get him.
Is that a mirror behind you, Dan? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, there's a mirror, and so I put another bookshelf there, so now I kind of have like a little library in the back.
Nice.
And then I put up I have a John Byrne, Terry Austin page, and Arthur Adams, Black Lagoon.
Nice.
Page.
Yeah, that's a great page.
Carl Potts and Terry Austin from The Last Dragon.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And a Brian Boland trading card. So I got some.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
and Dan's address is.
You can get all this.
I mean, except that Dan has a heavy security system. Dan, how many cameras? Like a dozen all for your property?
I did get recently. I have tons of cameras now. I went a little crazy with the Ring, and I have this ADT app. So.
And you got a Klikai.
And I have
that thing is super dangerous.
Wow, nicely done. I don't have a ton of artwork. The most impressive thing I have is over here in this corner, you can see it behind that lamp there a little bit, is a Drew Struzan Indie.
Oh,
what?
Which is like my prized possession, but and it's not even properly hung up right now because I have yet to properly decorate this. I moved like a year and a half ago, and I've been just so buried with deadlines. I haven't had the chance to really. And then most of my books are all along this wall here.
Oh, nice.
Is that bookshelf already there, Jeff? Was that built in or not?
No, these are IKEA specials. I just stack them. But they're this particular shelf that IKEA makes. I like how deep they are because, as you guys all know, art books they like to hang off the shelf.
They're long.
Yeah, so it's definitely made it much easier to have books with those books. So and I got up here too, like a Nautilus submarine up there.
Oh, super cool.
And I got a couple things, but most things I still got to unpack. It's kind of pathetic.
So there's still unpacking to be done.
There is actually, yeah. No, I moved in. I was just so buried with deadlines that I just jumped right in. I had boxes here for like 6 months where I hadn't even touched anything, and then I make runs at it and kind of get some things unpacked, and then kind of have another whole string of just working. So I imagine in another like 5 years I'll probably be finally done.
I've been in this house for 10 years, Jeff. I still have some stuff in boxes.
Is that right? Oh, don't depress me like that. I'm gonna start to think that's normal.
No, I have. I mean, I'm the same. I have. I've been here for 5 years, and I have half my library is still out in the garage.
Is that right? Actually, I started panicking because I'm used to being in Colorado where it's really dry, and I do sometimes leave things in the garage for years. And here in California, I was like, wait a second, there might be critters that'll actually eat this stuff out there. I better pack this stuff.
Yeah.
Dry here, Jeff. I don't think you have to worry about moisture like destroying books or anything. It might be the other end where it's so dry that they might start crumbling or something.
Right. Well, or else I was just kind of worried that like when it's a garage situation, you might actually get a critter who just likes to eat paper.
Yeah.
Like that
can happen. Yeah.
More one of those kind of things. So yeah. So but yeah, no, it's getting there. It's this space here is it's kind of nice. It's a separate like pool house. So it's a separate structure to that. Like to that window that you see back there, I can look out and see my actual house. So this is like a cool little separate structure, which is kind of nice because before in Colorado, I was in a basement level, and that while it was kind of cozy at first. Now, I mean, Ben saw it. He was actually he saw it at my place. But yeah, it's like this is much more airy. I get natural light. It's like world depth difference. I mean, I'm so happy being in this space here. It's really cool.
Jeff, can I ask a question? Scott, rather.
Yes.
Do you still, so when you get your books made, when you get the covers made, do you still have the warehouse space in Colorado? Is that where the
I
stuff's
do. I actually, yeah, no, I do. That's part of that. Well, that's part of the pressure of like having to keep doing these because I have a whole operation now where I need to sort of like steadily create these things to give them work to do out there. So, in fact, actually, in 2 weeks, I have to actually, mask up and fly out there, and I got 4 days of signing Gwenom versus Carnage and X-Men covers. I got to sign
covers.
Yeah. So yeah, it's my brother is there every day. There's like 2 other employees that are there, and yeah, they box up and ship comic books all week long usually. So like
super cool.
Yeah, I mean it's been a nice operation. I mean, we have a diamond license, so I also order other rare comics that I do through them, and we sign them and upscale them, upsell them with a premium package and that kind of thing. So it's been kind of cool to sort of take that sort of control over the products I do now. So now when I agree to do a cover for Marvel or DC, I'm always going like, oh, well, what's the ratio? Is this 1 in 50? Is this 1 in 25? And we can actually strategize and say, okay, well, we're going to order so many of these ourselves, and we can sell them on the site and get them graded in some cases and sell them CGC. We sell CGC of my stuff on the site. So it's a nice operation. It gives me a certain amount of freedom, creative freedom to do other things. Like I said, these statues and other things that kind of are pretty fun. And we even sold my statues on the site too. So, yeah, it's a fun thing. The only thing is like anything in life, you have to feed the machine. Once you have this thing, you go, okay, this is great. It gives me a certain amount of freedom, but now I got to like be shoveling coal in this thing too.
True. What's nice about that is it keeps you. Otherwise, sometimes you might get complacent, and you go, now you have people that are waiting to work and ship things and help out the operation.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's like, and I've been very fortunate, especially with, as we've all been sort of dealing with the cons, cons not existing really right now, and who knows when they come back. Having an online operation during this has been quite the godsend, because it's like it allows me to still kind of keep reaching the fans, and the fans to keep sort of like putting that energy and that sort of that spare revenue into still collecting things, and we're giving them an outlet to still collect and still have maybe not the convention experience, definitely, because like this warehouse I have, like, I mean, we would also usually have a section where we'd put all of our booth stuff on a pallet, and we'd sell the same stuff at shows. So right now, obviously, we don't have that outlet. It's all online, but it was all part of the same operation and sort of the same idea as far as like monetizing what I do in different ways that kind of like give me more freedom. So
that's very cool.
Joe, I know that we're trying to wrap up, but as so you were really, I know that Jim Lee was your first boss, like, and Jim is a really fantastic businessman who is dedicated to multiple avenues and always working his angles. Like, do you feel that being sort of in Jim's studio from an early age gave you a push in that direction?
Oh, undoubtedly. Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things, Jeff, that kind of got me about Jim, and even too, I mean, Dan can relate to this too. I mean, sometimes we do signings, and the 2 studios would be at the same event signing, like the one you had the photos for, Dan, from the bus and stuff. But one thing that I really quickly picked up on from Jim, from Rob, and then even later getting to know Todd McFarlane a bit and stuff like that too, is I was always my persona, or my understanding of being an artist when I was in school, was always that, like, you pretty much you're quiet. Artists are quiet, and they're kind of like don't really rock the boat, and they're kind of like, they're very sort of demure. And I think being around Jim really opened my eyes to I don't want to say the rock star aspect, because that can obviously go in an arrogant direction too, but this sort of self-confidence that came from when they would do appearances. I mean, Jim would jump on the table and like wave to everybody and get everybody worked up, and like it was kind of fun to watch. What's that?
I was going to say at that Deathmate tour, this is the first tape I really got that about Jim, was, as you noticed from that picture, I was always wearing tank tops. So I was freezing by the time we made it to Universal Studios.
Right.
And Jim sees me shivering while we're all doing our signing. And he's like, I'm going to get you a jacket. And I'm like, how? Like, this line is not going to be over soon.
Right.
And Jim found the guy with the jacket. He goes, I'll do you a full drawing. Can I have that jacket? And the guy was like, 100%.
Exactly.
I have the jacket, thanks to him. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, that's true. He would do stuff like that, and to this day, I think he still does. He'd create these moments. He'd tell somebody like, who has Tic Tacs in the audience, and then somebody would go like, I have some Tic Tacs. He goes, okay, well then you get this drawing, and then he'd like pick random things and really create this energy and this buzz. And I think
people loved it.
Yeah, I picked up on it. I was going like, that's kind of like back to the thing we were talking about drawing like this. I realized Jim wouldn't do that. Jim would be bigger than life. And it's not really, one thing I did learn about Jim, I don't think it was really even about Jim's ego or something like that. It was about, he wanted to live up to their expectations of him and maybe even supersede it. And I thought like, that was really cool. Like they already loved his art and stuff like that, but now he's gonna leave them with this experience of all this excitement.
Yeah, now they have a story.
Yeah, exactly.
So that drawing. Jim Lee wanted my jacket.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's got a story now. So to me, I think that's what I took away from it a lot from them. And then of course there was the business aspect, the fact that I saw these artists that weren't the starving artist cliche. Like they were actually artists who were like in control of like their destinies. That was kind of a neat thing to actually see, artists that actually kind of weren't at the mercy of something. They were actually like in control of their destiny. And I think I really wanted that. I was like, oh, this is something I think I would like to do myself. I think I would actually prefer to have this sort of like control over my destiny, kind of. So I think it was a big influence. I mean, I think it's very possible I would have thought very differently if I came in a different era, but I did come in the Image Comics era, like you, Dan. And I think we just saw the world in a different way. And I think also too, not to get overly serious, but when I went through a divorce about 15 years ago, that was also an eye opener, because up until that point, I just kind of skated through life. I made enough money with comic books and with what I was doing to just kind of have a pretty nice living and to kind of do pretty well. And after that, I was like, oh my God, for the first time ever, I was like, I've got to support two households in this kind of thing. And it was a big eye opener to go like, I got to get serious. I got to I can't leave any meat on the bone on this thing that I'm doing, which is my career. So that's when I just really started, just everything I did, I just ran it through a filter of like, well, what are all the avenues that this one drawing I'm making can go to? And I started making sketchbooks of my thumbnails, and I started making sketchbooks of my inks, and I started doing color volumes of my past work. And I was just thinking of every way to just kind of keep going like, okay, I want this to work for me, so this will make me money when I'm asleep, a website that sells something when I'm sleeping and it brings in some dollars, So to me, and again, I feel very fortunate not just to have come in at the Image years, but we're also now around for the social media era, and the online store era. These are things that our predecessors couldn't do. And it also gives you a, some advantages when you're dealing with Marvel and DC, because they know, oh, this guy isn't just drawing comic books for us. He's a retailer. He's actually buying them from us, and he's also has an influence online. Yeah, so if he does a cover for us, he's going to reach all these people with his cover. So you start to have leverage, and that's a big thing too in our industry, is to have actual leverage. So to me, these are all the things that just like started to click and kind of snowball for me the last several years, where I was like, okay, let's see how far I can take this in this direction, and so far I've been very fortunate to have it mostly work out the way I had hoped. I mean, I have a lot of great people who work with me and help me do this kind of stuff. It's not just me. I mean, if anything, one of the best things I did was hire people to do the things I didn't want to do, which is like file the right paperwork for this, make sure I'm going to this show over here, and make sure that check is sent. And so all these things that kind of happened allowed me to spend more time being creative and doing the thing that I do, because I don't want to spend any time doing the thing I don't want to do, which is a waste of what my skill level is, what I'm actually.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think it's impressive how successful you have been taking control of your own artistic destiny that way. it's something to be learned by. It's something other artists should pay attention to. I know that I am not. Dan's a great artistic businessman, and Dave. Those guys are way better at that kind of stuff, and Joe obviously than I ever have been. But it's something that I think as artists now we have to learn. And
Yeah,
you've done a really good job at taking control of all the different reins.
no, I greatly appreciate that. And the truth is like, and I've talked to different artists too, and some artists have their strengths in different areas, and this kind of. But I always think like a lot of what I'm doing, even if not every piece applies to every artist, there's always some pieces that would, like there's always something that kind of can work in some ways. I'm not saying every artist should have their own warehouse and people who work for them. That's not necessarily for everybody. And sometimes it's not even for me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I got to like make something to make sure this keeps going. But I think there is a mindset that I think sometimes is out of date with some artists compared to all these advantages we have, all this technology we have and stuff like that, to sort of like tap into this stuff. I mean, the funny thing about me doing all these exclusive covers the last few years, it was just observing something that was happening versus me really creating it. Like I kept doing these covers for Marvel and they said, oh, this, and eventually I was like, oh, what are these covers for? And they go, oh, they're exclusives for Midtown Comics. And I was like, what's an exclusive? Like, meaning they only sell this cover? I'm like, well, yeah, they only sell it. And I was going, so no other retailers get this cover, just Midtown. And they said, yeah. And I'm like, isn't this like the third one I've done for Midtown in the last like 4 months? And like, yeah. And I was like, Midtown must be selling a lot of these then because they keep coming back and asking for more. So Midtown was like my market research. I didn't even know it. I was just going like, well, if Midtown keeps ordering these things, then there must be a market for me doing these covers. So I guess I could maybe do them myself. And then I kind of went to Marvel and I said, could I buy my own cover too? I mean, it wasn't even like that clever. I just observed what they were doing and asked questions. And then I just kind of was like, well, the logical conclusion is I should probably be able to do this too. And the risk should be minimal because Midtown's been doing it and they've been doing well with it.
At that point.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes, and I think every artist has their own version of that to some degree. Like it's like part of what we do is observing how our artwork is used and play. I mean, that was another thing too. Marvel kept, there was a period of time where they just kept putting me on 1 in 50 covers or 1 in 25 or something like that. And I didn't know that. I didn't ask them to do that. I didn't, in fact, actually, sometimes I was annoyed because I would find that a lot of these covers I was doing, people in comic book shops weren't seeing because they'd sell them so fast because it was 1 in 25 or it was 1 in 50. Why would they see it? It's like it immediately goes on the back shelf or somebody walks out the store with it. And at first I was like kind of annoyed with that. But the flip side of that was these covers were going on eBay and shooting up because they were rare. Now, yes, to some degree I did draw them and they were rare to some degree, but a lot of it had nothing to do with me. They just printed so few of them. So I was able to capitalize off of that and say,
that's truly what makes a collectible, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could just I could springboard off of that and say, well, I guess my stuff is really valuable, but it's not really. Right. They only made so many of them, so it was a way to sort of go, okay, well, I'm observing what's happening. Might as well like ride this out and sort of like steer the boat a little bit, So.
Well, so much of art's value is what people think the value is, as opposed to having any sort of intrinsic worth, right? Like, right. I mean, one of Dan's drawings might be worth a lot one day, and then one day it might not be worth anything. Right, Dan?
Why? No.
No, it's very true. I mean, we're kind of like weirdly, comic books are kind of like Bitcoin in some ways. It's valuable because we all kind of agreed it's valuable, and we just, or money in general is kind of this understanding and agreement that this thing is worth this amount. Yeah. And there's volatility to it, but it's all perception. I mean, it's all, and what I've definitely learned, and I think any artist can take this away, is you do have control over the perception of what the value is of what you're creating. Like I can tell you this right now, I've been able to control to some degree the increased value of my own artwork by strategically knowing how much of it I put out there, not being super accessible to everybody who wants it. So then when I do put it out there, it is considered like, oh, it's not easy to find that. That's not really super. It's almost like what De Beers does with like diamonds.
Diamonds,
like,
there are plenty of diamonds.
Yeah, exactly.
De Beers actually has they've cornered the market, and they only release so many every year, and so they set the price.
Exactly.
I mean, it's fundamentally illegal, but it's what they do.
But here's the thing: as an artist, you are De Beers for your own art.
Absolutely.
You are the only way it gets out there. So you are the gatekeeper. You can decide how much of it gets out there.
Yeah.
What quality gets out there, and to some degree, you can have influence on that. And that's sort of like it was the same thing too with signatures too. At some point, it wasn't when I first started charging for signatures, which is kind of more of a norm now, but I started doing it a few years back. It was the funniest reason. It wasn't really to have a big head or anything like that. I was paying for these booths at conventions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty decent amount of money to pay for a booth and have that control over that amount of space. And I was also having a couple helpers come with me to bring boxes of sketchbooks and these sorts of things. So what I would do is people would come up and they want autographs. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, sure, yeah, I can. And then there were these big stacks, and they kept coming. And my help was standing there twiddling their thumbs, and crowds were around me for free signatures, but I wasn't moving any product. And my thought was, I think it was actually somebody who was representing Stan Lee at the time. He was the one who first said, oh, you should charge. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. No, you should definitely charge. And I said, like, okay, I'm going to charge, but it's only so I can get through this line so people can actually see the stuff I brought. So my thought was, oh, I'll give everybody one signature for free, because they did come out, and I want to meet them and I want to give them something. Right. But if it's anything more than that, I will charge. And my whole thought was, they'll go away. They don't want to pay for that anyway. And then they'll buy something else that I brought. Well, the thing I really quickly realized was they still wanted the signature, and they didn't even have a big problem with it, really. But I did have this more of control of going, well, now I'm not wasting this booth space. I'm not wasting the time for these people to be here. But it was always with the idea of, I just wanted people to see the stuff I brought and see the books I brought and actually be able to have that experience and not have it be a waste of money, because booths cost money. Plane tickets cost money, and I usually pay to go to shows myself.
Yeah.
So I need it to be a money-making proposition because I'm putting money into it. So that was the funny thing about charging. Now it's like, now I actually, just like the artwork, I can control the value of my own signature now. Like, it's not anybody can just get it. And if you get it, there's these other ways you can get it. But like a baseball player or something like that, we all have the ability to control how many of our signatures are out there, what its value is, and people have to kind of like come to terms with that or not if they want it. So, I mean, again, this is a process I started like 10, 15 years ago to kind of think this way. But I just think it's empowering, because at the end of the day, I've always told people, I don't want to be rich. I don't own a Lamborghini or some crap like that. I just want freedom. I want creative freedom to like do what I want to do, create what I want to create, and not feel stressed out about it. That's my biggest motivation. And anybody who knows me knows everything I do is just to have freedom. That's all I want.
And also, Scott, to that point, you can set your own prices and you can do all that stuff in theory, but there has to be that intrinsic sort of fan response. Like, they have to want it too. So it's a testament to, your drawing and your ability, and then you understanding like, okay, well, I'm going to be my own boss, and you've done an excellent job at that. And there's tons of popular artists, but you're very, very popular with fans, and people respond.
I do appreciate that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I definitely am well aware that I'm past my expiration date in some ways. Like I was being told like 10 years ago, like, oh, that guy from the 90s, like that was 10 years ago, and I feel like I've actually had my most productive years this last 10 years.
You still got legs.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Frank Joe. I'd like to chop those legs off.
Right. But I do think that's one of the best things that you could. I mean, we on the show we talk a lot about, like, sometimes we talk about how to ink or pencil or color or whatever. I think one of the things that especially younger artists need to know. I mean, I need to know it still as an older artist, is like you set your own value at some point.
Yeah,
like, and it's difficult, and it takes time to learn how to control that. And you've done it. Like, that's a valuable lesson.
I hope so. I mean, I would like to. I've been teasing this for years that I wanted to actually do one of these, like, because I enjoy these like module like learning. Like one of the things I love is that master class. Have you guys have that?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, they do like modules, and they somebody big names they have on there too, that like have like a skill set that's so unique and so specific to them. They do these like modules of learning, and some of them are really great. And
what was your favorite, Scott?
It's funny, Dan, I actually enjoyed a lot of the ones that have nothing to do with what I do. Like I like the Hans Zimmer one for some reason. I like the one that was like on advertising, which kind of is like what I try to do. There was like two guys.
Those two guys were great.
Yeah, the milk ad guys. Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah, and then that woman Wessler. Did you see her show about?
No, believe me, there's so many I have flagged. I got to go back.
Oh,
ridiculous. Yeah, no, those are great. Those are great. So I was thinking at some point I'd want to do something like that myself to help artists, like not to teach them how to draw, but to say, this is how you got to think about brand and identity and your value and these kinds of things. Because I do have big ideas about that kind of stuff that have served me really well. And I think
you're very forthcoming about it too. You're very, anytime anybody has questions, you're always like, you don't covet. Some people are like, no, I can't tell anybody.
No, I have a funny story about that, Dan, because I was like that for a very long time. I used to go like about 10 years ago when I was like starting to like figure some of this stuff out and I was having success with it. I would go to dinner sometimes at Comic-Con. I go like, I'd get excited about it, but I'm like, oh, I shouldn't share this because this is my secret little thing I know. And then I would start drinking and I'd slip out with a few things. And I'd go like, oh man, I shouldn't have told them all those things because they're all going to do it now.
No one did it.
I'm telling you, nobody ever does it. Nobody does it. Like I'm telling you, like, or they do it like years later. Like it's funny. Like I started realizing, it's not that valuable because most people will not take action. Most people who watch, there's even statistics about people who read self-help books. Like there's like this many people buy a self-help book. This many people like read part of it. This many people will read the whole thing. And then like a really small percentage, but then an even smaller percentage will try it. And then an even smaller percentage will actually consistently do it. It's like so small, like, and that's not to say that that's what I want. It's just statistically true.
Interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Dan and I were just talking about the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book the other day, and how I took I went through every lesson and I studied every page. I did it over and over again.
Yeah.
And then Dan just went to the fight scene stuff.
Yeah, I went right to the,
right, he skipped it. Like I actually did the perspective one and the shapes and all this stuff.
That you guys are having the conversation.
Yeah, and Dan just jumped right ahead to the fun stuff.
You know what? And I suffered for it for years. Like I wasn't that good at perspective. I wasn't good at background. Right. I wasn't a good comic book storyteller. And Jeff had gone through every step. And he's an awesome artist, and I've just been kind of playing catch up.
That's awesome. I actually had something similar. I so badly wanted to imitate Arthur Adams and Jim Lee and stuff like that. I actually felt there was a period in the first couple of years of my drawing where I actually kind of went back to the fundamentals to try to fill in the gaps. I actively would actually do the same thing, Dan. I would actually kind of go through these books and kind of go, wait a second, I really don't properly know how to draw a vehicle, or I don't really know how to draw this and that and the other thing. And I kind of had to, it was a weird way of like kind of tearing down my style to the core shapes, because it was all rendering on top of kind of loosey-goosey rubbery figures.
Yeah, all that like polishing a turd.
Yeah, I sometimes refer to it that my early style was my exaggeration of Arthur Adams' exaggeration. Like it was so bent and ridiculous. It wasn't nuanced in a way that was very, very good. So yeah, I did something very similar. But it's funny, I actually picked the Saturday morning theme not unintentionally, because to me, that is the part when you're talking about being commercial. That was the part of me that there's always this part of me, like I said, that's always thinking, well, it's got to still have that bouncy, fun, like thing that's going to hook somebody's 10-year-old inside of them.
To that work. I'm going to try to find some like just not Thundara, but like just even like Scooby's face right there.
Yeah.
The exaggeration is kind of like what you see. Like if you're looking at Velma, you're looking at like that, almost like a manga sort of expression.
Yeah, it kind of is actually in that shot. Yeah.
But you're seeing it, but it conveys those emotions so well that it's undeniable and unmistakable what is going on. Like, it's
again, every shot you're showing, Dan, you could silhouette it and we'd all know who the characters are. Like you would not know that. Maybe that one would be a little challenging, but
look at that Mort Drucker nose.
Yeah, it's totally a Mort Drucker. That's a total Mort Drucker background character, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Thundar.
No, there's Hansel. Look at those legs.
Yeah.
Now I'm crazy about backgrounds. I kind of
I gotta put that moon in.
Yeah,
You got to do it.
that. I kind of went through the same thing. Like my early influences were Buscema and Mort Drucker, but then once I started working on the X books, I really got into the X-Men stuff. I mean, I was just captivated by Jim Lee and Scott Williams and Will Spertaccio and everything that they had kind of created. So I kind of, it wasn't a conscious thought. I just kind of gravitated towards that stuff. And then I got out of comic books for a little while. My father passed away, and he was kind of the reason I got into comics. He was an advertising guy, and he always wanted to be a comic book artist. And so when he passed away, unconsciously, I kind of went into advertising. And when you're doing advertising work and storyboards, you have to be very, very quick. And so I noticed my kind of go-to style was all the stuff that kind of influenced me as a kid. And it was mostly this Buscema and Mort Drucker look. And it gave me the confidence to come back into comic books and kind of apply that. And for a little while, I was a little nervous because I was like, I have to draw the way people remember I drew.
Right.
I stumbled for probably a good 5, 6, 7 years going back and forth. And finally, Dave Johnson just said, actually, it was Drink and Draw, really. He was like, I like the stuff you're doing at Drink and Draw better than the stuff that gets published.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
It stuck with me. And it's like, I'm
having Dan, it was actually the muscle and fitness stuff you were doing.
I know, but I didn't really listen to you. I didn't really listen to you about that. That was before I got back into comics. And Dave and I weren't even friends. Dave called me up and he goes, I never liked the stuff you did when you were at Image. I thought it was garbage, but I saw an issue of Muscle and Fitness where you did some stuff. And he goes, if you drew a comic like that, I'd buy it.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I got off the phone. Some people might be insulted, but I was like, wow, Dave Johnson would buy a comic that I drew.
I remember that Muscle and Fitness stuff. It was great. Well, because it's.
I don't think I've seen that. I thought you guys are kidding around because of the.
Oh no! It was it was real. It was a real advertising magazine work. It was fantastic.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know magazines even still had illustrations. That's awesome to even think.
They would occasionally run some illustrations for some odd reason, and they would send me to the Mr. Olympia show, and I'd be backstage doing like courtroom-esque sort of illustrations of the bodybuilders. But it wasn't until maybe like 5 or 6 years back into comics where I had the confidence to kind of abandon that original style I had started off with. And
it's a brave thing to do. I know what you mean, because it's like muscle memory when you have a certain style and the rules built up for that style. I remember when I started, I mean, it's been several years now, but when your stuff started surfacing with your newer style, I remember the first thought was, well, not that Dan Panosian. Like, I was going like, it's supposed to be a guy who just has the same name. And I remember like going like, because it was so different, and it was exciting to see such a drastic change. I totally get why Dave said that. I mean, again, I'm certainly one who still has his foot very much still in those Image rules.
I see a lot of growth and changes, Scott. I mean, it's pretty incredible, especially when you show those. I didn't do my research and put the stuff up. I could be like calling up images, but if viewers are still watching, and the detail in the inking, because when you stopped working with Alex Gardner, I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go.
Right.
And your inking style, like, man, there's some serious detail there. And I saw you use some dry brush the other day, or you showed something that where you
that's true
stuff.
No, I appreciate that. It was actually like about 10 years ago, almost exactly, that I first jumped into doing the inking thing, because there was a weird, I don't want to say weird, but there was like a middle range there where Alex kind of went off to do his own thing, and I was doing like, they were digitally inking my pencils, but I felt really restrained in that because you couldn't get line weights very good. And I also found filling in the blacks, I don't like just putting an X there because I don't get a perspective of how much black that is. And like, I feel like so at some point, and then also too, people would say for years, oh, your pencils are so tight. Oh, your pencils are so tight. And they were right. But that's because I was so nervous about how it would be interpreted by somebody. So when I started inking myself, it took a little longer to finish it, but I found it was so much more like, you're right, you get all this access to all these other tools. You get
a lot of nuance.
Spatter ink, dry brush, use different tips. It just like totally, and I was always nervous about, oh my gosh, like when I throw that line, it's so permanent. But it's like, no, it's not. White it out. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Like, Yeah, so to me, it's like, and also to the other thing, I think the big hang up was like inking with pens because I just kind of wanted to. I didn't want to do the Crowquill thing for me personally.
Mhm.
But then in recent years, I saw that Scott Williams, because I guess he's been having some back issues in recent years, he switched to like the felt tip markers and pens, and I kind of like got really juiced recently in the last couple of years about what Scott Williams started doing with his line. It was so gritty and different than the 90s years, and I was kind of going like, what's going on? And when I saw that he was using markers, I was going like, holy crap, like Mr. Crowquill, Scott Williams is now doing like markers. But it turns out because of the way he has to sit to do it, he couldn't have the ink running. He had to switch it up. And I told him at a show, I think both Joe Madden and I actually both came up to him and were just gushing about his recent post he was doing on Instagram at the time of his inking. And he kind of almost got teary-eyed. I think it just meant a lot to him that he was not a lesser version of himself. We were saying, no, we love what you're doing. It's so gritty and toothy and kind of like not slick. And he, like, my biggest complaint in the Alex Garner years, Alex did a great job, and I would never put Alex down, but Alex knew I was always kind of pushing to be less slick. I was like, no, I want a little randomness there. These lines shouldn't be all straight. And when you ink yourself, you can throw those little toothy grit stuff in there to kind of give it that extra little texture, you know.
Is it amazing to look at Alex Garner's stuff right now?
Oh my God! I mean, he was right to quit the inking thing. He had a calling. His stuff's amazing. Yeah, it's great. I mean, he does quite a few sideshow prints too, like really fine art prints.
They're incredible. What I find is so hard to do, and Dave does this well, and I'm just kind of hopefully improving all the time. But like, it's one thing to color, like anyone can kind of color, but understanding value and hue and how those play against each other.
Absolutely.
It's taken years, and I just am starting to see. It's like I'm crawling up the mountain and I'm looking. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get.
No, I hear you. I hear you very much. I mean, I'm kind of like, I haven't quite made that full jump to coloring my stuff, but I have a really great working relationship with Sabine Rich, who I do most of my work with. And the cool thing about Sabine is she's very cool about my sort of like saying, no, I want this one to just be green and purple for this cover, and this is what I was thinking. And she
wondering if you
my core idea. Yeah, she usually will take my core idea and like just take it to the next level, but she doesn't feel encumbered by that. I think she kind of just likes that I know what I want and what I'm looking for. But you're totally right. Like, I feel like at these later year ages, I'm kind of going like, oh, that's what color theory is. That's what
really weird.
It's like kind of like
middle ground and how you can make that pop.
Yeah, totally.
I do it, and Bill Ray used to always kind of tell me about this. It's like, take that color thing and turn it into a grayscale briefly.
Right.
You really see, does it just
the values? Yeah.
The values, are they all the same? And I noticed I'm like, wow, they are kind of all the same. There's no differential between foreground and middle ground, and
totally
how you're looking at things, and that's really changed.
Yeah, especially when you do that thing in Photoshop with the little window within the window, and you can see the black and white while you're doing the color. It's pretty cool to see that as it's going.
Oh, I've never tried that.
Yeah, you can do that where it's like a locked off window, and you can I forget it's a setting, but you can create like where the window, an additional window in Photoshop can have the same drawing you're doing, but in black and white, and you can see the values as you're doing it.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Excellent.
Cool stuff.
Jeff, are you ready for some chorizo?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Oh no, so usually when on Thursday nights I tend to make dinner, and we often have, my wife and I have eggs and chorizo and whatnot, and that's usually the sign it's time for me to go. And it is, Jeff, this has been amazing. Thanks. So Jeff, Scott, we're friends now. So Scott.
Yes. Jeff, I could easily remember another Jeff. But yeah, Scott works for me. But no, that's great, man. This has been fun, especially in these times. I mean, I didn't realize maybe until this moment how nice it is to have a conversation outside of my own head, which is kind of fun. I mean, I've got my coronavirus like Jesus hair at this point. I'm well.
You look like a 70s action star.
I know. I was gonna say I feel like I'm doing a self-portrait drawing Shaggy right now. This is kind
of the mustache a little bit, Scott.
Yeah.
I know. It's funny. I actually have the full-blown beard, but it's so white. Only the mustache shows up on screen.
It starts white and then it starts to creep up. I got the picture.
Oh yeah, no, it's getting up there. I have like the gray like this thing right back here. I feel like a mangy dog, like from like a 70s like feel-good movie or something.
Yeah, well, it takes a long time to be good as an artist.
It does. I know. Just when you start getting good, all the other things break down. It's like,
yeah, exactly. That's when all the color starts to fade.
Very true. Very true. Well, thanks, guys. This has been a lot of fun. It's been a cool time. So I appreciate it.
It's been awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. We'll have to do this again sometime. And
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Ben, you want to
enjoy that chorizo? That sounds good. You're making me hungry.
Yeah. Ben, you want to sign us out?
Sure. Good night, folks.
Perfect.
All right. Well done.
Take care. Stay safe.
Take care, guys.